Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy Straight, shooting a review of Gone with the Wind. This film is turning 80 years old this year, and I think now is the time that I talk about this iconic 1939 film. It is a film adaptation of Margaret Mitchell's novel of the same name, and it turns out that this is the only piece of fiction that Margaret Mitchell ever wrote. I have not mentioned my paternal grandmother on this channel before, and I have a reason for bringing this up, and it's because Gone with the Wind was her favorite film of all time, and she passed away on February 14th, 2016. Yeah, on Valentine's Day, for something that is regarded as one of the greatest romance films of all time, although I think the word romance is a bit questionable regarding Gone with the Wind, but it's not your typical romance, I would say. Now, given that Gone with the Wind has been around for 80 years, of course, time has changed. Yeah, it doesn't have a bigger audience than it used to back in 1939, and that's a given. And I would also argue the running time of Gone with the Wind might be another factor, and I'm actually used to long films like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Heck, even the Lord of the Rings trilogy is one big giant film. Well, split in 3 parts, of course, but you have Fellowship of the Ring being the beginning, the first act, The Two Towers being the middle, the second act, and Return of the King being the end, the third act. And Gone with the Wind almost lasts 4 hours. Now, today's audiences might find that daunting, but then again, if you saw Return of the King and had no problem with its running time, I think you might be good. But then again, this is a film that came out in 1939. I have a suspicion that today's audiences are not going to appreciate Gone with the Wind as much as people did back then for its merit as well as the technical feats it made, especially with the use of Technicolor back in 1939. Gone with the Wind is definitely one of those films where the more you repeat your viewing of it, the more you might be able to appreciate it and also look at a certain view. If there's one thing that I stress heavily about Gone with the Wind is that you have to look at this with a certain time period, both in the story as well as the production of the film. Gone with the Wind was set during the time where the American Civil War was going on, although a great majority of the American Civil War was portrayed in the first half of Gone with the Wind. Since Gone with the Wind is set in that time period, that also means slavery was depicted as well. It is historically accurate to that American Civil War setting, however. The execution is the one thing that did garner controversy ever since its initial release. And given the politically correct climate we are in, it did not surprise me that some audience today consider Gone with the Wind a racist film, solely because of the depiction of slaves. I am not denying that there was racial injustice back in 1939. I will not, however, let this ruin my enjoyment of the rest of Gone with the Wind, because other than the depiction of slaves, everything else is great about Gone with the Wind. What I loved about Gone with the Wind is its use of its color palette to illustrate certain moods. The cinematography for 1939 was excellent. There are some obvious dated shots, but the film was released in 1939. I kind of expected films to kind of have that certain look. And the music by Max Steiner is one of the classic scores in American cinema. Gone with the Wind is also well cast, and what helped make this film iconic for sure was Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable. Another thing that may be contentious with today's audiences with some people is the characterization of some specific characters. And I know there's some people that do not care for Scarlett O'Hara as a character. And you know what? I actually never found her that likable in the first place, and I think that was what Gone with the Wind was going for. She may be selfish, she may be spoiled, but given her upbringing that is established at the beginning of the film, I actually see why she behaves that way. Now, as for Rhett Butler, he is more than just a handsome gentleman, because this film is not afraid to show at least one scene where he is potentially frightening to the viewer. When it comes to this channel, I say little to nothing about the ending of what I'm reviewing, and it depends on what I'm talking about. And if I have to dive into the ending for whatever reason, I try to be as vague as possible. Gone with the Wind is a very special case, because it has a famous one-liner that has been quoted for years. Gone with the Wind is an essential classic if you love film. If you have not seen Gone with the Wind yet, I highly recommend it. Although, you have to be really patient with this one, and you have to look at it with a certain mindset. I'm going to be shooting a 9.5 out of 10 for Gone with the Wind. Well, after 3 years since my paternal grandmother passed away, I finally got my review of Gone with the Wind out. I can see why this was her favorite film of all time. I really liked it. I think it is an achievement in American cinema back in those days. It almost got a 10 out of 10 for me, but I just couldn't. And if anyone is going to express sympathy towards me because my grandmother passed away 3 years ago, there's no need, because with the way she behaved, frankly, my dear viewer, I don't give a damn about her.